My mom was bedridden. She stopped coming to my football games. My mom's my biggest fan, so like when I saw her stop showing up, I knew something was wrong. And it got to a point where these doctors, these specialists, the ones that everyone flies all over the world to come and see, couldn't figure it out. They were like, "We don't know what's wrong, but we can make her comfortable." My dad didn't like that answer. Decided to take my mom's health into his own hands. We were just looking for hope at this point. Finally came across a functional medicine provider. Did things very differently. We're going to look at everything, all these different data points. Now, my dad's a successful entrepreneur. I had a degree in business finance. We understood that data. And so we thought what she was doing made a lot of sense. She was actually able to say, I know what's wrong and I can help. And put together a personalized plan based off of my mom's unique biology, optimize her hormones, optimize her thyroid, reduced inflammation, put her back in a metabolically healthy state. And slowly but surely, my mom started getting better. Fast forward to today, 15 years later, my mom's here still. She's still alive and she's not stuck in bed. She has the energy to watch my 3 little kids that are 6, 4, and 2. And 15 years ago, it wasn't a chance. And us as a family and my dad as an entrepreneur was like, why isn't this everywhere?
With us today is Zach Dancel. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Nava Health, an integrative healthcare company focused on root cause and personalized medicine. What makes Nava so interesting to me is how they combine medical wisdom with strong operational technology and financial systems expertise to help practitioners deliver more effective and coordinated care at scale. I've seen how disconnected the business and healthcare worlds are, and I know that bringing those two groups together into the same room is a big part of what's going to change American healthcare in the future. You ready? Let's go.
We are a functional and longevity medicine practice, helping people who are either chronically sick or ill, but also people who want to be more on the proactive preventative side. We have the ability, the way that we would treat someone super sick, who has all these illnesses and diseases isn't much different than how we would treat someone who wants to be proactive and preventative. We try to be as natural and holistic as possible, use, pharmaceuticals and interventions as needed, whether it's to treat illness, whether it's to optimize. But we are a company that can help essentially anybody in whatever walk of their health journey that they're on to take them to that next level.
So you help everyone who wants to take their journey to the next level, whether or not they're actively, or I don't know if that's the right word, but whether or not they are noticeably sick or whether they're just wanting to optimize things. What does that mean specifically? Like, do you help? Is it like a life coach helping them get their life together? Is it specific type of interventions? What are we talking about?
Yeah, no, we are a fully blown medical practice. I have licensed doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, nurses, nutritionists, acupuncturists, massage therapists to all pull together to operate as a team for every single person on a personalized level. We aren't a cookie cutter model. We are very well much a personalized medical practice. So everybody who comes through our doors is treated as a one of one. We do things very differently. We spend more time with our patients. The average appointments are anywhere between 30 minutes to 60 minutes. Most of our patients that are coming through the door, we're doing comprehensive labs with. We're running 80 plus biomarkers versus your primary care might order 15, 20. But we're going to look at the full picture, right? Health isn't Health isn't determined based off of the different silos that you're looking at, right? Our body operates and functions integratively, how our gut connects with our brain and our heart and our immune system. So we look at the full picture, right? We're not going to be hyper focused on one specialty because we miss all the other parts and pieces, right? We have to look at the whole you, whether that is comprehensive labs, a comprehensive medical history, understanding who you are as an individual, right? Your lifestyle behaviors, your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, your stress management, your community. Those are foundational pillars in health that your primary care or just traditional medicine doctor who might take insurance, they just don't have the time to ask those types of questions. And not only do they not have the time because they got to get to their next appointment, but they're also not taught those things in medical school, right? I think it's like 80% of medical school systems don't require a single hour of nutrition. Although food truly is medicine, right? All the data and studies are out there to show you just how impactful food can be to one's health. Yet we're selling more and more ultra processed food today, and our chronic disease and illness and death rates are higher and higher. Our fertility rates have plummeted, right? We're no longer reproducing at a level that is sustainable for growth. We're a declining population. And a lot of has to do with our overall healthcare system and our health as the population. So, us as functional longevity medicine providers, we're treating at the root of issues versus symptom management and sick care management.
So you mentioned that you can help anyone and everyone who comes through your doors. But who do you typically find coming through those doors? Are they people for whom traditional medicine hasn't worked? Are they people who are they are wealthy people who are trying to optimize their life, or like somewhere in between?
I would say post COVID, it's really been diversified. I think COVID woke a lot of people up to realize that the modern system isn't built for better health outcomes. The modern medical system is great for an emergency, right? You need emergency surgery, break a bone, you have an acute infection, so you need an antibiotic. They're great for that. That's really what they do. Only thing that they really do great. And there's other things, I'm sure. But when it comes to optimizing you as an individual, reducing the risk of chronic disease and illness, reducing the rates of all cause mortality based off of you as an individual, treating you personally as a one of one versus a cookie cutter model, it's very different. We're here to drive better health outcomes versus just survival. Long story short, how Nava was created 15 years ago. Nava's only been open 12 years, but 15 years ago, my mom got really sick and we went down that modern medical system path. We went to our primary care, just like most people thought. When you don't feel well, go to your primary care, right? Like they should have the answers. We were taught and trained and passed on from generations that doctors are the closest thing to God, right? They're these healers. And we lived in Maryland at the time. And so we're surrounded by some of the top hospital systems in the world. Right? People fly all over the world to go see specialists at Johns Hopkins. So my mom had access to that level of care and those types of specialists. But my mom didn't get better, right? She was doing what we're told to do, go see your doctor. Well, average visit with those doctors are 7 to 10 minutes. That's an intro, right? That's a nice to meet you. They can't ask things about her nutrition, her exercise, her stress management. They can't order comprehensive labs because they just don't have the time to do that type of work. But they were able to ask what her symptoms were, and they were able and quick enough to write a prescription on their prescription pad, right? First one didn't work, went to a different specialist, got another prescription, went to another specialist. And you see where I'm going. She went on this hamster wheel where she very quickly was on 10, 15 different medications by all different types of specialists that weren't talking to each other, weren't collaborating with each other. They were specialists that had a super hyper focus on their specialty, but they weren't thinking about how everything plays a part in overall health and how the brain and the gut are connected, or how her hormones are connected with bone health or her brain health or breast protection. But they were very quick to put her on these medications, right? Because that's what they're taught. That's how medical school it brings you up. It's based off pathology. Client presents with this, prescribe that.
Some call it statistical medicine.
Yeah. So my mom was bedridden. It was to the point where she was bedridden. She couldn't get out of bed. She stopped coming to my football games. I was playing college collegiate football, University of Maryland, Wake Forest. Got invited to Green Bay Packers for the rookie minicamp, and my mom's my biggest fan. So like when I saw her stop showing up, I knew something was wrong. And it got to a point where these doctors, these specialists, the ones that everyone flies all over the world to come and see, couldn't figure it out. And we were like, "How is that? Right? Like this is your job. This is what you're supposed to do." And they were like, "We don't know what's wrong, but we can make her comfortable." So my dad didn't like that answer. He didn't take that lightly. Decided to take my mom's health into his own hands and started doing research. We were just looking for hope at this point because we were kind of led to believe like this is the end, this is her life, and it's only a matter of time.
These are the people you go to, and if they can't help, well, then it can't be helped.
Right. So I went out searching, did research, tried different healing modalities, just again looking for hope. Finally came across a functional medicine provider. Did things very differently, switched things up from what we were used to with this phase that we're going through. where average appointment was 30, 60 minutes, where before making any recommendations, she did comprehensive labs. Then she did another comprehensive visit that was 30, 60 minutes long, breaking everything down. Looked at all her sex hormones, looked at all her thyroid, right? Not just a TSH like your primary care typically will run. No, reverse T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies. We're going to look at everything. Food sensitivities, lipid panel, metabolic markers, inflammation markers, right? Everything. Because she understood how it all plays part of the big picture. And that was the point. After she spent all this time, had the time to, get to know who my mom was, ask how her sleep hygiene was, what her typical diet looked like, what type of exercise she was doing, how was she managing stress, the commitment that she had in community that was around her and that she was involved with. Understanding a full, extensive medical history and now comprehensive labs, right? All these different data points. Now, my was a successful entrepreneur. I had a degree in business finance from the University of Maryland. We understood that data, just how important data is for everything in life, whether it's in business, whether it's in sports, whether it's in healthcare, right? And so we thought what she was doing made a lot of sense. And so that's kind of why we had some hope and why we kept going down this path. So we're finally once she had those results and she spent the time and explained how the different symptoms that she was dealing with was correlated to the different biomarkers and things like that. She was actually able to say, I know what's wrong and I can help, and put together a personalized plan based off of my mom's unique biology, who she as an individual, right? Not just another statistic. My mom as a personalized, unique, one-on-one model, right? Got a personalized plan, optimize her hormones, optimize her thyroid, reduced inflammation, put her back in a metabolically healthy state to where the body can do what it's naturally supposed to do. And slowly but surely, my mom started getting better and better and better and better. Fast forward to today, 15 years later, my mom's here still. She's still alive and she's not stuck in bed. She has the energy to watch my three little kids that are 6, 4, and 2. And if those who have kids understand how much energy they have and how much it takes to take care of them. 15 years ago, it wasn't a chance. My mom couldn't get out of bed. So we saw this different model of healthcare, this functional medicine model that wasn't in the shackles of some of the biggest systems in the world that controlled or they couldn't control or dictate the level of care that this small functional provider wanted to do. And us as a family and my dad as an entrepreneur was like, why isn't this everywhere? Why isn't functional medicine mainstream? Why isn't it the first line of defense, right? If we're saying 80 to 90% of chronic diseases can be prevented through lifestyle interventions, behavioral changes, and through optimizing everyone's unique biology, why isn't that just what we're doing today? And obviously, going down that path, we understood there's a lot of powerful forces that have been in the way for a very, very long time that have tried to prevent that from happening. But I think once COVID happened, it kind of let the cat out the bag, and it's blowing up, right? Functional longevity medicine is becoming more mainstream. It's not there yet, but it's starting to creep there. And, we've been doing this for 12 years. So that's kind of just how we got here, right? Hopefully that clears up some of the questions that you might have had as to what some of these things are and what led us to this path and journey of Nava Health and trying to grow this national business, because it's at the end of the day, it's something worth sharing because of how powerful it is. Saved my mom's life. We've been around for 12 years. We've seen 65,000 patients. We've saved many of other people's lives. And it is the future of healthcare. Treating the root cause, being proactive, preventative, and predictive with our health will give us that ability to where we're not being reactive, right? That is the current modern medical system. It's reactive. When you feel sick, then go see your doctor. But what if I was sitting here to tell you we can prevent you from ever getting sick, right? Or at least extend it for a very, very long time to where you don't have to go down that path. Well, we can do that today. There are options. There's ways to do it, but it's taking a proactive, preventative approach versus a reactive. Having the knowledge, having the information to do this, we have that today and we can. It's just those who truly want to take advantage of it, they have to be the ones to take that first step because it is something that is different. It is outside the box. It is a change. People don't like change, as you know, right? People like comfortability. They like the status quo. What we're doing today isn't that. It's very different. And that is the hurdle that we constantly have to overcome. But once clients come into our doors and we have that opportunity to sit them down and explain this, I mean, it's like a whole new world opens up to them.
That is an incredibly powerful story. And I am so sorry you guys went through that, but it's amazing where it led. And it's amazing that your mom is doing as well as she is today, able to be with three kids. I have one, and then that's enough energy for myself. I can just imagine. But there's so many things that stand out about that story that makes this such a unique and powerful story. But one I wanted to just start off with, you said you have a business finance degree and your dad was it statistical research? What was the,
No, so the prior business to Nava Health was in the financial services space, debt management, debt consolidation. So when he was 28, 27, he filed for personal bankruptcy and he had to get himself out of debt. And he realized there was an opportunity to help other people like himself also get out of debt. So all of his companies have been purpose driven from personal experiences. They were that 1,000 pound gorilla in that industry. I think the company was doing 250 million dollars revenue, $1 million a year. They were in all 50 states. They had legislation changed for the betterment of consumers to help them get out of debt. So that was his background. That's just who he was. He's just a serial entrepreneur that built a few companies in that industry, in that space that were revolutionary for that industry. And they kind of set the tone. And then my mom got sick. And he felt that he had done what he needed to in that industry, sold everything off, had this new calling of helping people like my mom get the answers that they need and that they're searching for, and went all into functional medicine.
and part of the reason that I love that story. Thank you for correcting me on that real quick, because I don't know where I got the other thing. Is what I've seen is that there tends to be kind of two camps where there's people who are medical practitioners, medical professionals who usually have a huge heart for healing people and helping people, but they tend to kind of view finance people or people who are focused on finance as like people who don't care about people. That's what they
Yeah.
tend to think. And then you tend to get in the finance crowd where they look the other side and okay, you don't understand reality, like go do your thing. And they don't talk to each other very much. But in order for this to work, those people have to talk to each other. The mission and the finances cannot be separated. And
Yeah.
what I love about your story, and I think it demonstrates what can happen when those things come together,
Yeah.
because you have a medical practice built by financial professionals, and then it's just growing and growing. And so I want to understand, how did you bridge that gap? Like how did you find doctors to hire? Did you have medical people in your circles that you were able to bring in? What
Yeah.
started that story?
Yeah. I think what it all comes down to is the culture and leadership that is brought to the front to set the standard of who we are as individuals, who we are as people. We're not just creating a business to make a bunch of money, right? We are here creating a business to change the face of medicine, to extend the human lifespan and health span, to give people answers that they have been searching for, to give people more time with their loved ones, right? Now, that is what we're doing. But then on the financial side, if you're looking at that, what company could possibly be more valuable than a company that can give people back more time with their loved ones, right? I mean, how many times have you heard it? Only if I had one more day with so and so, only if I had one more month, right? And there's a company out there that has the ability to do that. To me, that company is going to be the most valuable company in the world, right? Who can truly make an impact and show people the difference in outcomes that we can have when you follow personalized plans, that you have a doctor on your team, a nurse practitioner on a team, you're a nutritionist, you're exercise scientist that are all focused on you as an individual personally, And if you can get the team and have the leadership to have everyone bought into that mission, you're going to create a company that's unstoppable. And really, that's what we've built here. You know, we've had those talks. I know exactly what you mean, right? Doctors don't like the financial side or the business side of thinking that we're just all about money, 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 right? Or the word sales, right? Doctors don't like the word sales. Well, it's unfortunate that they don't because everything in life is selling. You're selling your education, you're selling you as an individual, you're selling better health outcomes. Now, if you want me to
You're
take the word
convincing
sales,
your client that this is the
yeah,
way to go.
exactly. If you want me to take this word sales out of it and put something else there, at the end of the day, it's still sales, right? So, not to say that it's been easy to find the right individuals, but what we've done over 12 years, right? We've developed a hiring process that we know how to vet those people out, right? Because our culture isn't going to be for everybody, and we are okay with that, right? But I don't know who can't get behind, right? If you can't get behind a company that's trying to change the face of medicine, that is truly, that has this, the statistics and the data to show that we are helping people live longer, healthier lives. If you can't get behind that, then you don't deserve to be
You
here,
have you have other problems.
right? Because all providers who walk through the door, I have a very clear conversation with them that this isn't about you. This isn't about your title. I don't care if you're a doctor, nurse practitioner, PA, nutritionist, nurse, or someone who doesn't even have a medical degree, or if they bring value to a certain situation, to a certain topic, titles mean nothing to me. All I care about is someone who has passion, someone who shows up every single day wanting to make a difference and have done the things to educate themselves and bring themselves up to speed on a certain topic. To me, title doesn't matter. Anybody who can add value to a certain topic that can create better outcomes for our patients, they can have a seat at the table, right? And I'd say that very clearly because at the end of the day, clients and patients of ours aren't coming to see a unique doctor. Our company name is called Nava Health, right? It is not a doctor's name. So patients are coming to Nava Health because of what we've built, the systems that we operate off of, the protocols that we operate of, how we're able to pull all this information and drive these better client outcomes. Because I want them to know we're not here to talk about egos. I'm not here to bring people who have those ego problems that constantly want to be at the front and feel because they have this big old medical degree that they deserve that type of recognition. Well, just because you went to medical school a little bit longer, right, and you passed some tests, doesn't make you any greater or better than someone like myself who has busted my butt to train and educate and make myself as knowledgeable as possible on all the things that we do at Nava. Because if we're being blunt, everything that we do at Nava is not taught in medical school, right? Our doctors and our providers have to learn that, what we do here outside of medical school, right? So say that because the question that you're asking, how are we doing? It comes to leadership, the culture, and finding individuals who want to make an impact and who can buy into our mission. And like I said before, our mission is to help people live longer, healthier lives. If you can't get behind that, you're too focused on making sure that your name is at the top or on the website or whatever it is, then, this isn't the company for you. We're here to make an impact. We're here to make a change. Now, if your name gets put up there because of the impact that you're making here, great. You have that ability to earn that. But at the end of the day, the only thing that truly matters is our patients, is better health outcomes, because that is what Nava Health is here to do. And it's not based off of a single individual. We've brought all these amazing professionals and individuals and experts in their field to collaborate together, right? So all of our protocols, everything that we do isn't based off of just coming from one provider. It is a team. We are coming together as a team. And I happen to sit on the medical director team, right? Because I'm leading them, right? That is my job. So I have to know just as much as they do to help partake in this conversation. Because at the end of the day, we're making decisions together as a team, not as individuals. That's ultimately what's going to allow us to go much further in life and where we're going in this industry because we're going together as a team, right? As the saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so that's what we built here. And it comes down to the culture and the leadership.
So when you say getting together and making decisions together, are you talking about for each individual patient or are you talking about for the direction of the company? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, direction of the company, medical protocols, the different treatments or interventions or supplements that we ultimately want to bring in to be a part of our plans, right? That we've come together as a team, whether it's medical directors, medical team, nutritionists on certain things, but then we've reviewed it together, right? We're not making silo decisions alone. Now, when it comes to making decisions for the different patients coming through our door, it's a little bit different. Now, our providers do work off of our platform. We built a platform that helps and allows them to practice personalized root cause medicine, right? Because you got to think about all the information that we're gathering, all the data. It would be very hard for a single individual to be able to keep that all within their head. Part of the reason what the issue that I feel and my team, my family feels that the modern medical system failed my mom is because they were working in silos, right? They were only operating based off of what they could remember in their head, based off of their education, based off of their experience, right? Not based off of 10, 20 other specialists in their field that have gone through different education, that have different experiences, that have tried different interventions and seen great outcomes. Yet, if they're not collaborating, if they're not talking to each other, if there's not a platform for them to put those things into, then how do you catch up with the other until you eventually you come across that experience? So we've built a platform that has all this knowledge, utilizes AI and different algorithms to help pull in all the data, all this medical history, all these labs, all the symptoms, all the health goals to help develop these personalized plans. And then our providers, when meeting with the clients, are able to then craft it and personalize it even more to the patient that's sitting right in front of them. I mean, AI is going to be revolutionary for healthcare because of just in which the speed we can act and the accuracy, right? Instead of taking a guess that's this wide, we can hone it down into like these few options that allows us to get to the results much sooner, much quicker than we could without AI. Right? Think about without AI or without the internet, doctors would have to go to the library and look up the different books. And right? No, we can have access to this in seconds. And so why wouldn't we use that to help propel us, right? To help give people quicker answers, to help give people quicker interventions that are ultimately either going to heal, treat, cure, or be preventative for their overall health. So
So I have some logistical questions here. Really, there's a lot of data. There's a lot of time being spent on each individual person. How do you actually make that work logistically, financially, patient load? Do you have a patient waiting list a mile long? Like, how do you actually handle the amount of data for the patients that you deal with without just being overrun?
yeah, great question, and it's kind of where I was going. It's the platform in which our doctors and our patients operate off of. It's a platform that takes in all this data, has all of our protocols, all of our standard recommendations on when different symptoms and biomarkers are presented. This is going to be our first line of defense because based off of 12 years worth of experience and 65 patients worth of data, we've seen the best results here. So it allows our providers to act and think a lot faster because basically they're utilizing that as the guide and they're really kind of fine tuning and tweaking from there.
So you've built a platform that does 90% of the work ahead of time, and
Correct.
then they're able to operate more quickly, more accurately because
Correct.
they're freed to think about the more specific decisions.
And it's not just this one specific platform either, right? I mean, we give our providers all the tools that we could possibly think of to be successful, right? Simple things like using an AI scribe where it allows our providers to instead of sitting there in the appointment typing up their notes or waiting until after the appointment where they're not in front of the client to then type up all their notes. It records their appointments. It puts them in perfect format that they need to so that they can, at the end, they can quickly review it, they can read through it. And if all looks good, then that's the note that's published. We've eliminated the time that they have to do that themselves so that they can sit there focused with the client or patient right in front of them to truly ask the right questions, to go down the discovery while knowing that their notes are going to be taken care of. Because whether you're taking insurance or not, right, it is critical to have all those bits and pieces of information in that note on the insurance side, right? Because if you don't, you're not going to get paid. And regardless whether it's insurance or cash, right? Healthcare isn't a magic pill, right? It is something that we are constantly working on, continuously looking to improve. So that one visit, eventually you're going to come back, right? And they're going to want to review what was the last discussion like? What recommendations did I make last time? So that I can pick up where I left off. Or if it's another provider being that's going to see them because one's on vacation or one's retired, whatever it is, right? We have that record that we can go and operate off of. So it's important. So we give our providers all the tools that we can think of to be successful, whether it's dosing calculators, whether it's custom vitality plans, like I mentioned, that does 90% of the work, and then 10% is the patient and the provider. So we've helped them to be able to scale. We've helped them to be able to see more people. This platform allows us really to take any medical professional and put them through training 30, 45 days. And after that, when operating on our platform, they can be some of the most advanced functional medicine providers in the country. Whereas if a provider were just to do this on their own, it's going to cost them tens, if not 20, 30 thousands of dollars of additional training, right? Even though they just paid $250,000 for their medical education, they're not being taught this in medical school. Everything that we're talking about here is really being taught after. Then it's just more bills, it's more time, and it takes years of accumulating all this knowledge and all this experience that we've been able to syndicate into a platform so that they don't have to go through all that. And we've developed the training that can quickly develop them into be some of the top experts in the country within 30, 45 days. By operating off of our platform, it allows us to be able to scale as the demand grows.
So to quickly clarify, so are you a physical clinic or is it more like a software as a service for functional providers everywhere?
Really, you can look at it as both, but everything that we do today is corporately owned. So we do have brick and mortars. All the providers that we train and are working for Nava Health are corporate employees. We are in do telemedicine in 15 states, but this year is really the year that we're going to be pushing to scale both our brick and mortar business as well as our telemedicine business. Ultimately, we want to be in every state. We're going to be nationwide in the next 4 or 5 years. We want to open 100 to 150 locations and be and doing and practicing medicine in 50 states.
And the idea is that there are doctors who work in your system, and then there are doctors who work like using your system. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. We have the ability to do both. Now, today, everyone is in our system, but part of the whole opportunity to do software as a service, we call it our last model, longevity as a service, where we can go into practices or we can go into med spas, we can go into gyms, right? And offer the ability for all these different types of businesses and platforms to have access to this level of care, to have access to this level of information for whether it's competitive advantage, whether it's because they truly have a passion of helping people live longer, healthier lives, or providers who want to make that change. They've finally been in the modern medical system to see that they aren't able to make the impact that they originally thought they were going to be able to make in medical school.
Thank you for clarifying that. And that actually sets it up to be a really powerful resource for any people who are in functional medicine or who want to get into it, that your system exists as a resource to them to essentially immediately start operating at a much higher level because they're able to essentially outsource a lot of the brain work ahead of time and then focus on what they do best. So
Yeah.
I love that exists. And then I will definitely be looking further into that. But the questions the question comes back logistically, like to finances. My train of thought, the more time you spend on each patient, the fewer patients you can see, the higher the cost goes up. So how are you managing that? And how would someone who wants to get into this or start something similar manage that without breaking the banks of their clients?
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to, financial modeling and forecasting, right? What we've seen and what we're able to determine is, we're tracking things like lifetime value or the value of a client or patient over the next 5 years to be able to tell us on average, here's what we stand to make, right? So it allows us to have that ability and the flexibility of making sure that we're offering the right thing. But at the end of the day, we're not going to offer a service where we're just losing money. And so it comes down to the numbers, making sure that our margins are healthy enough to cover costs to begin with, right? But then it's a numbers game. It becomes the more that we can scale, the more efficient the overall business gets, the more buying power that we have with different vendors to negotiate lower prices because we're buying, we're doing so much volume. So it really comes down to making sure that when you are dictating the different prices of different services, it's not just about covering the cost of that visit, right? Of that provider's time, right? You also got to think about your G&A cost, your, general administration cost, your call center, your electric bills, things like that, where you have to take into consideration. But it's just a numbers game in financial modeling, right? So that's why I think it's so important to make sure that no matter if you're a medical practice or not, or led by a medical doctor, having somebody who knows, has some financial literacy that can build models and forecasts and understand how to truly develop a forecast model to give you the best opportunity to be successful because it is a different model. You're not just sitting there relying on referrals and insurance companies to send you clients, right? In our line of business, we're a cash based business. So we have to do paid marketing, which that has a cost to it as well. So you have to have the ability to dictate and have the data to say, if I spend $100 on Google Ads, I know it's going to return me with 5 leads. Those 5 leads could be form fills or phone calls. I know that I'm going to convert those at 30 to 50%, right? And on those 5 leads, that means I'm going to have 2 or 3 more customers based off of the $100 spent. Now, that 2 or 3 customers over 5 years is going to generate me X amount of dollars, right? So you see where I'm going down with how we're forecasting and playing this from the very beginning to the very end to understand where we need to be with our pricing to make sure that we're at a place where we can cover our costs, we can make sure that we can grow and scale because ultimately we want to have the ability to make an impact on as many people as possible. And so whatever profit that we get, we're just going to reinvest back into the company so that we can get quicker to making this large of an impact at scale.
So let's take that concept and make it more specific. Let's say there is a practitioner watching, owns their own practice, and they've been doing things kind of the conventional model for a long time, insurance based, typical how their financial system works. What would be the first few steps to start shifting their system to be much more self-sustaining, like you're saying, not depending so much on insurance, but without breaking the bank of their clients?
Yeah, of course. I think it starts with making sure that the education on these different modalities, these different healing modalities and interventions to be able to speak to it at large, to be able to show clients the data or the statistics on the impact that it's going to have on their health. This comes where the whole selling piece comes into play, where doctors have to be able to sell, right? You are selling better health. There's nothing wrong with that. You should be happy or inspired to be able to sell your product if you know that it's going to help people live 5, 10, 15 years longer. There should be no guilt trip about that. So, education so that you can speak to the client. Here's why I have to charge this price, right? Here's it's going to be the impact that's going to have on your health, right? What's more important to invest in than your health? If you don't have health, what do you have? You have nothing. You have all the problems in the world until you have a health problem. And you have one problem, and that's all you're working on. It's all you're trying to figure out. So Also having the education of knowing, being able to speak to client as to why this isn't covered by insurance. These types of things aren't gonna be covered by insurance because they don't recognize this yet. Why it's not recognized, we could go down a thousand different pathways, but ultimately, the current healthcare system is a sick care model. The more people are sick, the more profitable it becomes, right? Just look at the statistics that we showed today. The US is sicker than ever before, yet big pharma, big insurance companies are more profitable than ever before. And it's built like that, right? It's not a broken system. The system is built to get the results that it exactly gets. These are all big publicly traded companies. And as a publicly traded company, they have a fiduciary responsibility, a legal responsibility to give their investors a return. That's their number one, right? That is the path that they have to live by to generate and drive a return for their investors. Legally, they are obligated to do that. So if they're able to put more people on medications, right? Because pharmaceuticals don't cost much of anything, but they're very expensive, right? They're able to dictate the level. And these medications that we speak of, right? Not many of them are truly healing or cures, right? They help people live a longer life. They don't help people live a better, more quality, longer life, right? And ends up just
First, so the first thing you recommend is them educating themselves on the types of care and therapies and options and modalities that they can offer their people. And then second, get better at essentially selling to
yeah,
understand, to be able to bring that to their clients more effectively.
yeah.
And then
I mean,
third,
eh,
understand why you are doing what you're doing, why helping their clients understand why these things have to charge a certain way, why we have to go a certain route financially, and why it's still worth doing it.
exactly, right? Because we've been conditioned for so long to think, oh, I have health insurance. It should cover anything when it comes to my health. Doctors need to be educated to speak on that because we personally in Nava had to deal with that for a couple years, and we had to explain to clients that when I, as a provider, am contracted with an insurance company, I am obligated to charge their prices. I am obligated to bill you what they tell me to bill. I don't control that.
Can a current professional who's trying to shift their model to be much more aligned with yours financially, how can they do that?
Yeah. And to be able to, speak to a client as to how this is positively going to impact their health, right? Even though it's not covered by insurance, you have to come out of pocket. This is something that is going to be life changing, right? This is going to change your life for the better. It's going to give you the best opportunity to be more proactive and preventive and prevent chronic disease. They have to be able to speak at a very high level because so people are so used to having health insurance or think health insurance is going to cover it. But what we have to do a lot of the times is break down to clients is that health insurance, think of health insurance like car insurance. It is there for an emergency. It is there if you get into an accident, you need a quick surgery, you need, an antibiotic for an acute infection. But it is not there for your routine maintenance. It is not there for your oil change. It is not there for your tire rotation. And you're doing all those things to give your car the most longevity possible. Because if you don't, eventually it's going to crap out. Health insurance and our health, we have to view it as the same way. It is there for an emergency, but if I want to give myself the best opportunity to live the longest life possible, I have to do my routine maintenance. I have to come out of pocket for that. Health insurance is not going to cover that. Like that's just point blank, it is not. An annual physical is nothing. 7 to 10 minutes, a CBC, CMP in terms of the labs that they're pulling isn't going to tell you anything. Plus, they are trained to look at the ranges that you get from LabCorp Quest as normal ranges. And if your range falls within the normal, they're going to say, oh, you're fine. This is standard. The symptoms that you're dealing with is aging. But they're not educated to talk about to the client that these LabCorp and Quest normal ranges are based sick population. Because all those numbers are just the average number, right? For that result of that lab of clients going into that facility. And I think, we might have said it before, but I'll say it again. 95% of the US is metabolically unhealthy. 71, 72% are either overweight or obese. 60% of adults over 40 have at least one chronic disease. So on average or above average, the population is sick. And so LabCorp and Quest, when they put these normal reference ranges, are based off of a sick population. And your doctor is sitting there trained to look at that and say, okay, you fall within the normal range, but they're not sitting there telling you, oh, you fall within this normal range, but this normal range is also based off of a sick population. Here's the optimal ranges that we actually want these markers in, right? They're not taught that. So you have to be educated enough to show and tell clients, here's the difference. Here is why you're paying cash for these services because you're now pulling up to, a Ruth's Chris steakhouse, right? I'm going to give you the best product possible. I'm going to give you the steak that's going to blow your mind versus, going to just a Texas Roadhouse, right? You're going to get the same cut of meat everybody gets. It's no real, nothing special about it. But hey, it's cheap, right? That's kind of where you have to be able to have the terminology, the experience, or just the ability to show clients why you are saying this is your value, right? This is what you're worth. You're going to be able to give them something that just insurance can't. I'm going to be able to give you back more time with your loved ones. How important is that to you? Is that something that's worth investing? Of course it is. Who's not going to spend that money if they're saying, I'm going to give you back more time with your loved ones? I don't know who wouldn't invest in that versus being shackled by the system, right? Very limited as to what we can do. If you just want an annual physical, that's your choice. But I at least can give you the education and the knowledge of here are the two paths: short, simple, cheap, not very personalized. We can go down this path. But let me show you what the average statistics are. The average statistics is most of the population is sick. Over here, I can give you more time. I can order more labs. I can give you better outcomes. And in our case, we can show clients our statistics when clients are with us to say, within the first 12 months, I can reverse your biological age by 2.5 years, right? Have the ability to show and tell clients that is game changer. I mean, it's not much selling you have to do after that, right? Because I am literally telling new prospects that are coming to our door, within the first 12 months, I'll be able to reverse your biological age 2.5 years. That without a doubt is telling them, hey, I'm going to give you more time with your friend, your family, and your loved one. You know, when you get to that point and you have that type of data to be able to show them, it's not hard to sell that, right? To sell more life.
So, follow on with that is because we're helping that person build their team and build their new practice, shift it in a new way. We talked about finances, talked about sales, and then now I want to talk about people because you mentioned earlier how important the right people are and leadership and culture and all that. And I can think of like there's technology needed. There's administration, people needed planning and the C-suite and all of that. And then even just within the medical people, there are different specialties you'd want to bring in. So for someone who perhaps is a one doctor practice or they have a small team and they're trying to shift more in this direction, who would be like the first 5 people that you would suggest they hire
Yeah.
to give them the most leverage, the most strategic leverage to be able to take this sustainably in that direction?
Yeah. Think it's going to depend on what that solo provider, what they want to do and what involvement they want to have in the process and what type of knowledge that they have on the business side, right? Are they a provider that still wants to practice medicine, right? Like that's what they went to school for. They want to be hands off and they want someone to help them actually run the business side of things. Or are they someone that wants to be less in the chair and more so on the executive side? But to kind of take on both, give you an answer that can answer for both. The first one would be is get someone, whether it's an operational director or chief operating officer that understands operations, right? When we need to pull in marketing, when we need to pull in IT, when we need to pull in financial forecasting, when we need to pull in HR, right? That has more of that variety of knowledge of the different aspects of running a business. I think a very solid operational person is going to be the first person you need to go to. Because most of the time they are the more entrepreneurial spirit, right? The they can have both the vision, but also the know how to execute. Not them personally, but they should know the different resources that they need to tap on to execute. Whereas some of the other executive roles are more executioners, right? In terms of they need to execute their plan. Like marketing isn't going to know much about the business. All they're, you know, taught and trained to do is how to do Google ads, SEO, social media based off of what they do as a business. Like their job is to just drive and funnel prospects and clients ultimately to the operations team to handle this, convert them, get them scheduled. So the first person would be operational, strong operational person that has the knowledge and know-how with the different areas. Next person I would probably suggest would be someone marketing, especially on the cash side, because you don't have the you don't have the insurance referral model, right? To just be put on their provider list as in network, and then most of the primary care doctors, their schedules are just going to naturally be full because of that. When you're a cash-based business, you're going against that, right? You're going against where people think that they can get something for free because it covers covered by insurance. So you have to be able to market to people that there's a different way, right? You don't have to go through insurance. You're going to have to pay cash, but I'm going to give you something that insurance just can't touch. So they're going to have that knowledge and that know-how and the ability to craft your message. Basically, take your mission and put it into a message for people to see that want to come and sign up for your clinic, that want to pay cash base. So I think marketing is huge. Depending on how big you are, the next person would either be IT or data and analytics, but sometimes they're the same person. So I think technology is huge. The more data that you have to make decisions as a business owner, to make the adjustments that you need to, are very big, but also IT, right? How we can stay connected with our patients, how we can make the work of our internal employees easier with the use of technology, how we can streamline things from point A to point Z, utilizing technology, I think is a game changer. So I got operations, marketing, IT or data and analytics. I think those three are going to be your most prominent. Now, obviously, after that, as you've got these bits and pieces and you're scaling, then you could bring in someone financial, right? Will have the ability and the scope and the know-how on how to just make things more cost efficient, eliminating things that we're overpaying to a different vendor to get better pricing. That has the
It's
ability to go
interesting.
out and raise capital. Huh?
It's interesting. You wouldn't hire that person first to have the margin to hire these other people?
Well, no, I wouldn't because um, if you're not getting people in the door, what are they gonna come in and manage? Right? They don't have the operational know-how to make operations more efficient. They don't typically have the know-how of how to go out and execute a plan, right? They can give you a forecast model. They're great with financials and spreadsheets, but that's different when it comes to clients walking into my door, right? Or a customer or client are calling my phone asking about information on how to sign up. That's going to be my operation person that has the knowledge that can put the structures in place for whether it's an internal call center or an external call center to get that person to schedule, right? To sell that person why they need to pay $500 just to get started with me, right? That's operations. Can't do that without marketing, right? So now let's get the floodgates coming in to drive to my operations to make things more efficient. To be able to better connect, drive more retention, I need the IT. I need those pieces. Then I want once kind of have like a solid foundation, then yeah, I would say to get someone to come in, can look at the financials, find areas of opportunity, and hopefully the operations person, right? Like I said, the operations person should have a pretty strong grip on every single part of your business. The finances, the marketing, the IT, the operations, if I didn't say that, the HR, right? They're going to be your most versatile individual. So they should be able to understand financials and balance sheets and utilize QuickBooks, or if you're using an agency to do your financials, to make those types of decisions. But they're not going to be as specific or forecasted as a true CFO or controller might be.
And what about your first medical person? Like, I assume maybe you could look for someone who is in integrative or functional medicine to get them on your team to kind of help them strategically medicalize.
Yeah. So again, that kind of goes back to the first question. Does this provider want to be the one in the seat, or do they want to be more of in the executive role? Find a more executive approach versus actually being the one seeing all the clients. Based off of that, it comes down to being a numbers game, right? What your costs are, what your expenses are, what's the volume that you have coming into the door. You should never just go out and blindly hire another provider without having a plan to execute on how you're going to either replace that salary with reduced cost or increased volume to at least make up for your cost, right? So where you're not putting yourself in the hole. I see it all the time. People just want to go out, oh, just want to hire somebody else without actually having a plan of, okay, a nurse practitioner is typically going to cost me anywhere between $10,000 to $12,000 a month. If I have no plan, that's just straight additional cost for me. But if I say I can go to my vendors, negotiate new contracts because I've been doing more and more volume every year, that I can reduce my cost $6,000 a month. Okay, I got half of my nurse practitioner salaries covered. Now let's look on the marketing side. Am I booked out 3, 4, 6 weeks that if I bring on this nurse practitioner, I'm going to be able to see more, right? And do I have the opportunity on the marketing side to increase my spend that's going to then turn on the floodgates even more to where I can really have that person booked up? So you see the process that I'm going down. I'm not just going to hire someone just to hire someone. I'm going to make sure that I have the plan that I'm going to go out and execute. Am I reducing the cost somewhere else to cover this new salary or this new expense that I have? Or am I going to be able to increase to also cover, to make sure that I am constantly going to put myself in a cash flow positive situation?
And I want to, just for the professionals who are watching here who may be worried about bandwidth issues, budget issues, I want to say, like, this is a strategic shift, because initially you might have to pull back a little bit on how much you're spending directly on helping your clients. But the goal is
Yeah,
to be able to 10x how many people you're helping and how well you're helping them within the
exactly.
next couple of years. So
Mhm.
there is a short term reduction. Oh, I'm not able to see as many people. I'm not able to give them everything that I want to in the short term. But then the long term, how many people are you going to help and how
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be a period where you have to buckle up and show up to work every single day and bust your butt to show that you have the ability and the capacity now to hire another person, right? Sometimes you're going to have to work more and put in more effort to get to where you want to so that you can take that step back or so you can take that different role because your passion is more leading the team as an executive versus being the one in the chair. But you got to have that mindset, right? To where, okay, if I'm not booked out 6 weeks, what do I have to do to get booked out 6 weeks with that, which would then warrant me to hire another provider? All right. Well, let me increase marketing for the next 6, 8 weeks. I'm going to be a little bit busy. I'm going to have to work a few more hours. But once I show that, then I can execute. I can hire my nurse practitioner. I've then covered my costs because I know when I increase the spend, I'm going to be able to drive X amount of clients. And then I can become into that executive position where I can kind of take a step back from being in the chair and shifting my passion to where I really want to be.
Or even what are the services I offer that are high effort, low financial return,
Yeah,
or maybe they're high impact but low financial return, but for a short amount of time, I need to focus on the higher financial investment so that I can build a system that can then heal more people.
exactly. Right. Because at the end of the day, we're here for the patients, right? The more patients that we have, the better product that we have, the longer that they'll stay. If you offer a good product, the money will come. So now it's just making sure that we are making the right financial decisions to put ourselves in a position to continue to drive these outcomes, right? To continue to make the right business financial decisions. What's the size of the location that you truly need to operate out of? Do you need a 4,000 square foot space, or can you do it in a 2,000 square foot space because you have the ability to do telemedicine, where you don't need a bunch of consult rooms, right? It's one way that you could look at it. Less rent, less build out costs, less utilities for a $15 telemedicine platform subscription. I mean, it's so many ways that we can skin a cat, but it's doable. It's out there. You just got to find the right people that can buy into your mission, that see what you see, and want to go out there and do great things.
So I love talking with you about these things, like practical solutions for how do you actually begin to make large scale change. And I've been fortunate enough to interview a few different people in the last few weeks who are kind of doing similar projects of like, how do you get away from the traditional model in a feasible way? And some of them are doctor led and some of them are CEO led, that sort of thing. Uh, I just want to like, let's dream a little bit and let's talk a little bit about like, what could the future look like? The more that these pockets, these Nava Health type organizations are starting to rise up in the United States, what could the system look like in the next 10 years, next 15 years?
This isn't even me like as being a conspiracy theorist, but if you look out there and that some of the data scientists and people out there to say if we're alive in the next 5, 10 years, we'll have the ability to at least have the option whether or not we want to live to 120, 150 years old, right? And not just living that long just to live that long, but living that long at a quality life, right? Where we have energy, where we don't have pain, where we're free of disease, right? That it only makes sense if we're able to do that without living with disease, without living with pain. That would just be miserable and torture, really. So I think I'm a firm believer that it's going to happen, right? With the convergence of technology and AI, with the convergence of us really buying into this alternative way of medicine, being able to quickly shift and change our stance on new data and new science that is out there, right? Being okay with accepting that we are wrong, right? If you look at the traditional medical system, let's take the Women's Health Initiative in 2001, probably going to go down as one of the most horrific, impactful, dis, you know, bad taste. I don't know how many different things I can say about it. It's going to go down as one of the biggest medical travesties because we allowed 2 decades of women to go without such a profound, impactful, life changing, life saving treatment and hormone therapy because of bad studies, because of bad data. The study didn't change forever, right? The study was a study. The information has been there the whole time that this is not right. Yet it was propagated online and all to the medical system that hormone therapy is going to cause cancer in women. Nothing changed about the study, 22 years later or 24 years later. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but they're removing the black box warning off of hormone therapy for both men and women because all of the fear, all of the concern was finally debunked. And not because the study changed, but because of how we were looking at the data. So we could have been onto this back in 2001 when it came out. We could have saw that it was synthetic hormones that, yes, cause exogenous estrogen that cause more issues, more side effects, more risks. They could have saw that it was with women who were already past menopause. They had been in menopause for 10 plus years. So the estrogen absence for all those years had already done its damage. The wrong delivery mechanism. They were doing it orally instead of transdermally or subcutaneous. All that was there back in 2001. Yet how it was interpreted, how it was perceived, now widespread this dogma to keep people away from it. Now, why was that? Right? Who was controlling the studies? They see such the profound impact that we see, that we've seen for the past 12 years, that it gets people off of medications, makes them healthier, gives them more energy, makes their bones and muscles stronger so they're not going to fall over and fracture a hip, which then causes them to be on have a surgery that costs $20,000, $30,000, and they have to be on medications for the rest of their life. I don't know, right? But I know that the information that was done, they had access to. Nothing changed about it. What changed is that there was some very courageous individuals that was willing to come out and start saying, hey, you guys got this wrong. Look at the data, look at the studies. Look at if you actually utilize bioidentical hormones, do it to women before menopause, give it to women through transdermals and subcutaneous. It is life changing. If anything, hormones are a benefit, not an enemy here. Hormones give women a longer, better quality of life than if they didn't have it. So, it's a daunting space that we're in, but it's constantly evolving is where I was heading, right? We're willing to admit when we were wrong, and we're also quick to hop on a new intervention when the data and science supports it. We don't want to be just burst to the party for some new shining toy that someone's talking about online and it becomes trendy. Well, what's the data say? What's the science? Is there anything that's backing that's truly going to make an impact on someone's health outcomes? If yes, then we're going to entertain it. But if not, we're going to stick to the things that the data and the science has proven to be profound and impactful for someone's longevity.
And I think just to wrap up, I want to focus on one of the main things for me that has stood out in this conversation. And one of the things that I think offers a lot of hope is what is possible if we bring together the compassion that healers have with the insights that financial experts have and bring them in the same room. What kind of system could those people build together? And I think what we're seeing in Nava Health is an example of that, a system that it works. It helps people in depth effectively, and it works in a way that is financially stable, sustainable, and one side is able to help the other. And like two sides of the brain working together, you have a body that actually works. And those are the people that we need to bring together to build the new American model of healthcare. And if we can do that, the sky is the limit for how healthy, how the longevity, the wellness, everything, the sky's the limit for what we can see in the future of American healthcare. So I think it's amazing. I thank you for the insights, the wisdom, the experience, the heartfelt passion that you have about this. So thank you so much for bringing that today.
No,
Really
of course.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you giving me the time.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by Bennis Companies, where we provide education, consulting, technology, and other resources to help health and wellness professionals deliver better health outcomes for their clients. If this episode was helpful to you and you want to support our mission to improve U.S. healthcare and win the war on complex illness, you can donate any amount using the following QR code or the link in the description. As always, like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who would benefit from it. See you next time.